All right. Well, welcome to the Iron Table, where iron sharpens iron. So this men sharpen men. Today is going to be an interesting discussion. But before we get into it, I gotta definitely introduce my co-host, Mr. Jones. I think he
Yay,
has a first name.
every day,
Every day. What is your first name?
every day. Jones,
Okay.
no, Keith Jones, Jones, man, you knows me. Keith Jones
All
in the
right.
building.
Yeah, not my building, his own building. We're doing this remotely, but we got an extra special guest here, a brother from another mother. A guy that we go back, I guess, back to the '80s, right? He's
Yep.
nodding. Yeah, okay, now he's speaking. That's good.
D.
Uh,
Williams, Super Bowl MVP for the Washington Redskins. Number
Going to
17.
the going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we going to Disney
Disney
World.
Disney World. On a Disney World. That was it.
yes, it is that D. Williams, not Doug, but yeah, that D. Williams. But he was
Yo,
gracious enough to join us today. And today, before I get into the topic, I wanted to ask these two gentlemen this question that just popped in my mind. Given that the two of you are divorcees, when you think about your wedding party, um, who is the one person in your wedding party that that you really didn't want to be there, but you acquiesced because of your wife's insistence that they be a part of?
I don't really have an answer to that personally. There was nobody that I was like, yeah, no, they can't be in the wedding party that I remember.
Now you had a pretty big wedding
It
party.
was a big
we
wedding.
both did. We both
Yeah,
did.
and you can't go down a list of. I mean, I'm pretty sure to be a one of the bridesmaids, unless you had a reluctant groomsman that you didn't want to be a part of it. But you can't think of anyone that you were like, okay, I'm gonna have to give you this one. Um, or was there anyone that you had to defend in your own party, their inclusion?
No, I think that there was no one that I had to defend that was actually in the wedding. I think just discussions on who was going to be in the wedding was. But I mean, we were in pretty much agreement. It was such a large party because it was like, okay, who do we? All right, everyone come.
I was
Y'all
gonna
didn't have a cutoff.
There was no kind of, my wedding party was over 30 people.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's similar fashion. Well, when you asked me, the question was a little shorter. You said, "Who in the bridal party did you not have to have there?" And I said, "The bride." So I'm sorry, makes
Man,
me laugh.
that is just wrong. That-
So,
give it you to give the honest answer, man.
well, that's how you phrased the question. You said in your party, thinking of back to the wedding, who did you not have to have there? And thinking back now, it would have been. Listen, we still could have had a great party, but
No,
for
but real
real,
talk, we all have a mutual friend that had something like that happen. You
that's true. And
where they got to the wedding and one party was just like they didn't show up and they continued to celebrate and that
as
person
they should have.
a lot of composure and later down the line the blessing they weren't even looking for didn't expect that was exceedingly abundant the more than they could ask or think came and the way they handled that situation, I think, has a lot to do with how they were able to be set up divinely. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, that's an awesome story. I mean, it was what it made the story made some magazine. It was a
I think it was Ebony or Essence.
Ebony.
One of them.
One of them, Ebony or I think it was Essence.
All
Yeah,
right.
Ebony or
Y'all gonna have
Essence.
to
But
remind me who this is because I'm drawing a blank offline. This
Gwen
is like,
Marie.
yeah, I was gonna say Gwen Marie.
oh, okay. Now I remember that. Yeah. All right.
So But yeah, but like much like Danny, my party was so big, it was the opposite. I'm outside recruiting people, like, hey, what size tux you wear? You trying
Yes.
to get in this? You trying? You trying
Why
what you
were we
doing on
doing that
what
though?
what
Why?
you doing?
Why were we trying to have
What
so
you
many
what you
people
doing
in
on
there?
Sunday? You at Sunday 3 o'clock. You what you doing? Yeah, I know I just met you, but you you can you fit this tux though?
Well, I think it was. I mean, then you didn't want to alienate anyone out. You know, you had a
No,
circle, and
no,
you was like,
I
oh, so
don't.
you just needed people. You
I just
needed to
need the
fill a
people.
spot. I mean, then was I your fifth round draft pick? I
No,
mean,
I had the people that I wanted in, family and friends, but because she kept coming with numbers, the expectation was that I match or that I find people to go with these numbers, and it got to the point I ain't who's available,
wow.
who's
Okay.
who's free.
I'm just glad I wasn't, getting a call out from the undercard, or what is it, the NBDL, the minor leagues. I mean, for
No,
me, it was.
mhm.
I mean, we had a small party. I think four on each side, and we did a destination, and so I just thought about just the financial implications, and at that point, I mean, everyone who was going to rock with me was going to. I needed more support after, and not just during that day. So I was able to keep it small because y'all would have had to pay y'all way to get out there anyway. It was so it was, I think, depending on how long you stayed. I told people I just need you for 15 to 45 minutes. The rest of the time, consider it a vacation. Just enjoy yourselves out in the Dominican. But yeah, if now look at my party, I was cool with everyone there. I had one groomsman who was a very close friend of Misi, and I mean he was cool. I was glad he was a part of it. Brought jokes. I send a random message to him even today just to check on him. So, but yeah, y'all definitely had some large parties. Just
That
Why?
ask me the statistic on parties. Well, since you asked, I'm gonna just tell you. No, on the real talk, those who have these big elaborate weddings don't fare well. People who go to the justice of the peace actually have better marriages than a lot of people who have the elaborate weddings. So there's something to say for that
is it the
statistically.
cost? Is it the like just paying off wedding debt? Like I don't we didn't have wedding debt because
I didn't
most of
have
it
wedding
was
debt either.
I
There
don't
was
think it's
no debt.
I don't always I don't it's a lot of factors, but I think wedding debt is. I personally think wedding debt is stupid. There's no reason you should go into debt before, like, you're coming into something that you already stacking. If you're stacking up wedding debt already prior to coming in, you stacking the deck against you. That's what I'm trying to say. Um, but I think it's practical. In my opinion, I think it's practicality. I think a lot of people who have a wedding that is within their means. They have a wedding. You could still have a quote unquote dream wedding or a nice wedding that isn't. Again, you said you look at the destination. The whole destination, a few people, and you sit here with no regrets, and you're still married 10 years later. So it's one of those things where you're not sitting back like, oh man, I wish. And then even if you did, I think for those who don't do the elaborate wedding, again, they save in cost. Um,
yeah, put it
so
towards a house.
they put it towards a house, they put it towards a car. What do couples that often get divorced argue about? Finances, bad decisions with money. Um, there's a time and place. Now, sometimes there is a time where you will, splurge and do certain things as a couple, but you a wedding is one day.
So
Yeah, and
going, but
I was writing about maybe about 2 weeks ago is how much planning we put into this one day,
One day.
and
One
then
day.
how little planning you do into everything that happens after that. The lifetime that's supposed to be, there's almost no planning. It's just like you expect to just march off into the sunset and live happily ever after. And happily ever after is the biggest lie ever told, because after you have that wedding, then what? What's more important, getting married or staying married? And people put so much emphasis into the actual ceremony and all of it being just perfect. And there was a couple who recently, I was actually looking on social media today about a couple who had a $500 wedding. 500. Now they were family members who were gifting stuff to them. They chose a free destination on the side of the mountaintop, off of the freeway. They're out in California.
You saying they just pulled over the side of the road and just got out?
It was really nice. It was really nice. I mean, I can send you the posts on IG. But good couple. They were on several media outlets. $500 wedding. And they weren't. There wasn't a budget, but there was an intentional focus on, okay, we're not going to go into debt. We're not going to dig a hole. Where we're trying to have a foundation. We're going to focus on what happens after this, and it's going to be nice. It was a nice wedding. It was beautiful. When you look at it, you're like, no, the guests, they paid for their own meal.
That's good. Right.
And they were okay with that because they understood the assignment. And everyone that was there was supportive of what it was this couple was trying to do. We had to stop looking at the weddings as these fairy tale, because like Keith said, the statistics, the bigger, the more elaborate. I mean, look at Kim Kardashian. I'm not trying to cause, any shade, but
you could go through all of Hollywood right now.
But no, the reason I say Kim Kardashian is because I have a screenshot of the People magazine cover, wedding of the year. Ain't even last 80 days. How you gonna be the wedding of the year and you don't even last a year? Like,
oh, is that when she was with that basketball player?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And this is common. This is regular. This is ordinary. People put in tens of thousands of dollars to get married, and then tens of thousands of dollars to undo that. And it's just like, what?
So, in y'all's marriage, how involved were you in the decision making? Is it like, hey, whatever you want, I just want you to be happy? Was it, this, we're not doing this, but we're doing this? Were you picking out colors? Were you saying, all right, I like this venue? Like, how involved were you in the decision making?
I'll say half and half. Like, to some degree, yes. I mean, I learned some new colors. I learned what celadon and periwinkle were, because learning about these colors, because I'm thinking green and blue, but no, it's not green and blue. Celadon and periwinkle. So, so I learned a lot. But I think our societal norm says that's their day. Since they were 4 years old, they were planning their day and what they wanted on their day. So when a lot of men come in, sometimes when I work with couples and I have husbands to be trying to, and I won't even say impose, trying to suggest or make recommendations, sometimes it doesn't fit the narrative of their day. So it gets vetoed. So some husbands do get to that, or husbands to be, or fiancés do get to the point where they just say whatever, just plan. But like you said, everybody's budget doesn't say that. So sometimes there are people that have to you got to rein them in. You got to pull them in and say, you can get flowers, but we not doing $400 a bouquet. We can bring that down to 50. And so some people get mad at that. Some people get called cheap and other names, and some men get upset with that. They do. But the reality is kind of what Danny just mentioned, having to balance for the rest of your life. You got to be able to have certain conversations. And if certain things don't work, they don't work.
So how do you have that conversation? I mean, because you're talking about we're years behind in the game. They've already thought this out. They know every detail except for the person that was going to be on what the person looks like on the opposite end of them. You're just coming in. You've made that a reality by asking that question, by her saying yes. How do you have a conversation to say, hey, my needs are important too? And that this is just as important. Now, the same for me, because I was fine with everything. I was fine with just standing there. I was like, hey, I'm about the day after and going forward past then. If this is the one moment where, whatever, not whatever, but what she has envisioned, she's picked out. Cool, I'm a rock with it because I just want to see the smile at the end, and we'll
Listen,
work
if you
on.
with somebody who cannot listen to what your needs are, you're not ready to be married.
Come on, say that. Say it for the people in the back.
So if you with somebody and you can't have a conversation about your needs and her needs or their needs, you're not ready to be married.
But you can have a conversation. I guess
You
is
said, how
have.
do you? You said, how do you have it? If you don't feel like you can just open, if you don't feel like you're with a person, you can openly go to and say, hey, I know this is your day. This is your vision. However, but you know,
Now you can say that, but I'm saying, but there's a difference between saying it, having that conversation, and it turning into an actionable item that you can see.
Well, I think it's important to recognize that when you're talking about something like a marriage, you've got several entities. You've got one entity over here, you got another entity over there, and then you have the entity that you're creating, the new entity. And so, recognizing that, all right, one of the things that I do for people to prep people being married is they have to literally write out what their ideal wedding is. Each one of them does that. And then the next assignment is take my wedding, and now you mesh it and make our wedding. So you sit down and you figure it out. Because everything that you want, you're not going to get. Your home, your grandmother's church, might be where you always wanted to be married, but maybe you don't live, or the majority of your relatives and family members aren't in proximity to that. There has to be, when you come together for a romantic relationship that's intended to last a lifetime, that there is a degree of compromise that is necessary. And if you don't have that walking in the door, you're dead on arrival. You've got to be able to have the ability to have those tough conversations, to make compromising decisions, and to be able to operate according to a plan. If you're not planning to fail, if you don't have a plan, you're planning to fail. You got to be able to stick to a plan. And what a budget is a plan for your money. So what's the budget? So when it comes to planning a wedding, regardless of how elaborate or not, what's the budget? What do you have to work with? And then for me as a man, I could care less. I'm not going to wear a purple tux. I'm going to wear what I want to wear.
but that's
Nothing wrong
my
with that crust
dream.
velvet.
He's gonna wear a crushed velvet purple tux.
No, you
Gonna
know
look like Prince.
what me and on my men. That's my big deal. But the only other thing that matters to me, are we in budget? And that's
So
it.
then that's okay. So what if the dream and the budget don't mesh? How do you have that conversation?
We got this amount. You want all of this, but we have this amount. So whatever's most important that can fit this amount, I support you 110%.
So prioritize.
Yes. But what's inevitably what we not gonna do?
What's never we gonna do?
We're not gonna go into $40,000 worth of debt over one day, especially if we don't have an overabundance of assets, income generating assets, to be able to substantiate that level of prestige, of high
Opulence.
dollar. Like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. I'm not doing that. Somebody else, maybe it'll work for them, but you can't put all of your eggs into that one day, because after that day you got to live, and that's where the rubber meets the road, where it gets real. What happens after the day? Anybody can
Right.
get. Show me somebody who has a healthy relationship, and is able to stay in a thriving relationship.
Yeah, it definitely takes compromise and communication and planning. I'm hearing planning. But okay, let's we touched on, the marriage, the wedding, but with the two of you being divorcees and getting back into that field, what is dating like after divorce?
Scary. No,
No, why is it scary?
well, no. I'll tell you. I'll tell you why
Tell
it's
him.
scary.
Tell him.
When you get married, most people don't plan on being divorced, but half the people who play the game of marriage fail. You know, the marriage doesn't last. Now, the scary part usually is you had such high ideals going in the first time, and you can't help but be a little jaded as you're coming back and looking into the realm of starting another relationship when the one that you put all of your eggs in, that you gave it all you got, didn't work the way you planned. And so you're going to kind of look side eye at just about everything that comes your way, no matter
No
how
lie.
good it is, no matter how different it is. You're going to be giving it the side eye because, I
Mhm.
remember it was all good the last one too, and now, you know, so
No,
yeah,
you
that
you go
elephant.
out. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing. You sometimes you go out and you waiting for the bottom to fall out
Yes.
because like you said, I know what this is. I know what's gonna happen here. I've seen this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
it's post traumatic stress. Like if I got bit by a dog, when I was a kid, I know in my brain that not every dog is going to bite me, but I cannot disassociate dogs with pain. And so when it comes to that romantic relationship, people who have been traumatized in whatever way, but because I don't think that you can be divorced and not have some kind of trauma. That's my personal opinion.
so
Now,
men have trauma too in divorce.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
so we don't talk about that.
I, that's my humble opinion. I don't know, Keith. You agree? Disagree?
No, absolutely. I mean, divorce is again. I emphasize how divorce is very similar to death.
Yeah.
Not similar. There's a death of relationship. There's a death of identity. There's so much that changes going through that process. So, um, a lot of we don't often see a lot of men vocalize that. And then again, in our culture, a lot of us go to a Judeo-Christian church where you don't talk about divorce. We and then it's a it's shunned. It's bad. Like you're not supposed to. That's not a good thing. So
You're a weak Christian.
you're a weak Christian. It's like going having a mental illness. You lack faith. Well, no, sometimes people get sick and they need help, but it's not that they lack. It's not that they're a weak Christian, but going through a divorce because you couldn't pray it back together. You couldn't lay hands on it and fix it. So you're broken, and that's why your marriage is broken. So it's not the case. But so a lot of guys just kind of ride off into the sunset and just disappear altogether, and they marry these thoughts in their heads, and they start to really truly believe that about themselves, and they suffer in silence.
Mm-hmm.
So, mm, so is there anything like positive, if you could say one positive thing from divorce, like did you learn something about yourself? Was it, like there has to be something positive, even from a Christian standpoint. Nothing comes across us that we're not able to bear. There's always whatever is not everything that is for us is meant to be good, but God is there with us. I'm trying to think of how
What
it's
doesn't
said.
kill you, it makes you stronger. And Marvin Sapp put it this way, I'm stronger, I'm
Oh,
wiser, I'm better, much
so
better.
much better.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's so many things that I've learned and am learning. You know,
still,
yes.
So
still,
what would you
'cause
tell someone who just got, who's recently divorced, and is thinking about putting themselves back out there?
Be
Is
simple.
there,
That's what I would tell them.
but how long?
It varies. You know what I equate it to? I equate it to so we all went to Pine Forge. together, which is a boarding high school for any listeners who are there. And so you bond in ways that most people will never understand. So there was some of the bonding that took place was in stalls in the restroom. So you would go in and it's a sacred
Now
space.
this is a co-ed school. I want to make sure I say that this
This
is a
is a
co-ed
co-ed
school.
school. Yes. And so, but there's sacred space in the restrooms. Now, one of the things that we know is that some people, they got to go and they got to let it marinate. They get comfortable. They take the magazines.
Uh,
Oh,
They
okay.
going to be there for a while. And other people, they go in, they take care of business, and they're out in less than a minute.
Mm.
It's different for everybody. There's no one formula that says, oh, you'll be ready after this. I think the key is how long it takes you to process all of the bad that's happened, all of the losses, naming all of the emotions, going through the stages of grief. You can't really put one fixed
yeah,
time.
that's like saying because everybody's bodies, our physical bodies don't heal the same, and mental doesn't heal the same. So I could get stabbed in the abdomen. We both could get stabbed in the abdomen by next week. I could be healed, ready to get up, go back to work. You might still need an extra week or two.
Mm-hmm.
That's how this process is. You have literally been gutted,
Mm-hmm.
and and it's going to take you a little time to pull yourself together, and you will know. And some people are still wounded out there trying to date. I wouldn't, like Danny said, wouldn't recommend it. It's terrible. Because when you wounded and you out there, you bleeding all over everybody. You contaminating everybody. So
And you're
um,
attracting brokenness.
and you are
So,
attracting brokenness.
Oh,
And then what happens is this is where I
like
often
sharks
talk.
just coming. Like, oh, he broken. I'm
Yes.
going to try to
So
fix him.
what happens is there's a lot of people out there who want to be fixers, and the relationship is only as good. While this is what I tell a lot of the women that didn't understand. I found him, I cleaned him up, I got him back on his feet, and then he left me. Well, that was because you found a guy who was broken, and really, he
Probably didn't know himself, didn't love himself, didn't. He was a shell of himself.
yes, he was a shell.
a lot of time.
You found a guy who was a shell of himself. So as soon as he healed, the foundation of the relationship was gone because the foundation of the relationship was about you healing him,
Yeah.
not you forming a
Oh,
relationship.
okay.
Yeah.
So from
Good.
her, the foundation was because I was about to say it makes it sound like he used her to get better. Now
It
he's
is
better. He
it,
doesn't need her, and he's
it is
moving
not
on.
intentional, but he's not himself. He's not. If he was, I've seen relationships where if he was his normal self, not going through any of this, he probably would not have entertained this particular type of female. But she came and she helped him get himself together. And when he got himself together, he moved on. And she was hurt because she thought they were building something and it didn't work out. But
Yeah.
I'll say, I mean, you asked what it's like. I'll say when I initially got into the whole marriage situation, it was 2 decades ago. So a lot has changed, like
Lot.
apps, like expectations. Um, there's so much that has changed. Like just how much uh, you're expected to be available because we are the digital age. So when people send you a message, you're supposed to just be there, or like it's just weird. So this whole, but people's mindsets are different. What people are looking for are different.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a learning process for myself and kind of learning the world around me. So
It's almost like when if you I've never been to prison before, but
thank
but,
God.
but the for those who have actually gone behind bars um, for a crime that they were accused of, they go in and they remember the world as it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when they get out, I don't know if you remember this old movie, I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. You know, we had was it Fly?
Superfly,
Yeah.
Superfly. He came out with his platforms with the goldfish in the
goldfish,
mouth,
Yeah.
his
I'm
butterfly
moving, baby.
collar, his
Yeah.
his
bell
cane, his
bottoms.
hat,
Yeah, he
his
had his
cape.
pimp hat, the cape, and he was thinking that the world was what it was when he got locked up. And he quickly found out
as
Yeah, they
they were
laughed at him.
laughing at him.
Yeah, and so that's really what the dating world has. It's morphed into something different. It's not what we knew.
Mm-mm.
It's a completely different world. It's like the Jetsons, So now we're looking at,
Flintstones to the Jetsons.
yeah, Flintstones to the Jetsons. That's very accurate.
So
Um,
how does a for from a male's perspective, how do you know when you're ready to go back out there? Um, from like, are there key measures or key like steps that you gotta take in order to be ready? And then do you listen to the counsel of your friends? Or you like, you know what? Nah, I'm not ready to hear that. Like, how do you know? It- what again, what steps or measures do you have to achieve before you're like, okay, now you should go out. Now you should get back into the dating field.
so for me, one of the things that I wanted to make sure I wasn't doing is if you're still hurting, you should be healing, not dating.
Yeah.
You know,
Period.
And
uh,
Period.
what's hurt in that sense?
it hurt in the sense that you're preoccupied with the last relationship and the way that it ended, or with the negative experiences connected to it. If you're still preoccupied with all of that negativity, you should be healing, not dating. That's my 2 cents. I don't know what you have to say, Keith.
No, perfect. I mean, I can't. That's period. If you are stuck
Hmm.
in a place where, like you said, you're still mourning the previous, I call it the previous administration.
Yeah.
You can't move beyond where you are. You can't see, because again, I see a lot of people sabotage new healthy relationships because they're still grieving the loss of. Um, I worked with a guy recently who his wife passed and he moved on, and he kept comparing the new wife to the old situation. So it's even in those situations where it's not divorce, it's just someone who's still grieving the loss of what they had, to the point it is a detriment to the new relationship. It can be a major deficit. But knowing when you're ready, again, everybody's different. Because even after you get to that point, you still have to work up the desire. Because a lot of guys, they heal from the last situation, but they still are not ready to go create another one because that PTSD kicks in, and it's like, well, what's the point? Um, so most people have to not only just get over, but they now have to work up the desire to create something new, because it does take work and it is risky. It's a gamble. Relationships are gambles. And we some people are not ready to suffer another loss. So you got to wait until you're ready to make that move logically and run that risk of suffering another loss. And it may not be. That's just it. But in the minds of most men who have gone through that,
Hmm.
that's because we have. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of divorcees, they do go through like major losses, was far
Like
financial,
war.
mental, emotional. They lose a lot. A lot, lose custody of kids or lose access to kids. Like, it's a lot of things that people go through in a divorce, that there's a lot of loss. So who would want to go through that again or run the risk of going through that again?
So if I'm lonely, if I feel like, I got a hole, I
Get a
shouldn't go
dog
date. Okay.
Or a cat.
or a cat.
So I mean, is there anything wrong with, now there's dating. We went to
Uh-oh,
Pine Forest.
he
You
froze.
hear dating,
Hmm.
you hear no, what is it? Monogamous relationship, you got group dating, single dating, what's that other part?
But now they call them polyamorous and
Well,
all
yeah,
these numbers.
we're not getting into that, but I'm
Okay,
saying,
I was like,
my understanding of dating is, we before was, once you go out with someone, that was it. You try to make that work, instead of, you have a date here, you have a date there, you're getting to know people on various levels, and then you go from general dating into single dating. And then that's when you say, okay, I choose you to put forth my resources, my efforts. And um then from there, you go into like a committed relationship. then you no longer date. You know, committed relationship usually leads to engagement, then usually leads to marriage. Um, so if I'm divorced, and I'm not getting divorced. If I'm divorced, is dating bad if all I'm doing is going out for, I would say, um, just social interaction?
I'm gonna say no, and I'm gonna say as long as you're honest about that, that is a situation where sometimes people do. They have to rebuild trust and relationships, not even just romantic relationships, just relationships with people. So in doing so, it may require you to just go out and socially hang out, get connect, build relationships, and um, connect with people, keep people outside of a romantic relationship. And even if you do choose to start gravitating in that direction, take your time. Make sure you're ready. Make sure that the person understands where you're coming from. But most times, as I've seen, when you're honest about these things, people tend to, even if they don't agree or they don't like it, they respect it. If you say, "Listen, I'm not looking for nothing serious," again, you're gonna come across people who are looking for something serious, and they're gonna feel that sometimes they feel they can change your mind, and that doesn't typically work out too well either. But because again, I've seen a lot of that as well. But most people that I know, when they're honest about where they are, there's a lot of people who are willing to respect that. So I don't think anybody should feel pressured to jumping in.
Okay, pressured into jumping into a relationship versus
Hmm.
pressure to so we're not saying don't date. We're saying be mindful of who
No,
you
be mindful,
are, where
be
you are.
mindful, be honest,
Yeah.
and tell people where you are.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we were that is interesting. Because I know a couple of people who have experienced that, and they're going through the process now of dating, and from a
Okay.
man's standpoint, how do you express those concerns, those fears? And at least what I'm hearing from you, Keith, was that just be honest in your truth. Danny, you might have missed it. We were talking about how do you state that when you're that you are that you've experienced some form of trauma, that you're dating, that you're just wanting to kind of get to know the person, but you don't want um any real strings attached. It's more of a social interaction than going in for uh, saying we're leading to a relationship. I'm trying to get to know you, uh, but I'm still dealing with hurt, pain, trauma. You may not want to say all those things, so that'll probably push a person away. But it's express just how real it is at that time. Um, we're gonna wrap this up. If is there anything that you want to tell, maybe a young man is, has just experienced divorce, the hurt, the trauma, the pain, and they're thinking about putting themselves back out there. Is there any words of encouragement that you would want to give them?
Okay. Um, Shoot. Oh man, there's so much. Like you said earlier, one of the things outside of taking your time, outside of being honest, um, if you do have a peer group, like you touched on that, if you do have a peer group and you feel comfortable having that conversation, because some people will see things in you that you may or may not see. Now, a lot of people are just trying to get you back out there just because they feel a relationship is going to fix your problem. So, oh, you should start dating. Don't date for that reason. Um, but if somebody comes and tells you, I mean, reads you in and out, and they see reasons why you may not be ready, be ready to receive some of that or all of it if it applies. Sometimes people see things where um, they know, and then what's the motive in dating? Um, if you're not really dating to be in a relationship, but you're again, but I think that's everybody. I think everybody needs to know their motive when they go out and start trying to connect with people. What's the motive? What do you want? Um, But it's a lot of things after divorce that I mean, it would take forever to really get through. But the main things is just knowing if you're ready, and if based on the healing and the motive and the intentions and being honest. That's those are the three things that I will put in a nutshell.
Okay. Well, that's I can't speak on this because I'm still married, and
And
thanks
you
to
will
you,
be.
and yes, and thanks to my nucleus, my team, those guys that have been pouring the knowledge that they have gained into me, and having these type of conversations definitely helps. So uh, my parting words would be just know you before you try to know somebody else. Just know you as you try to know somebody else. Peace.